Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for this week's show. In this episode, we ask why some words get all the stress in British English, some polite phrases to use when you want to check what someone just said, and how to address people in British English. Let's find out. Section 1. Why some words get all the stress in British English. One of the secrets to sounding naturally British is knowing which words to stress. In RP British English, this isn't random. It's all about content words. What are content words? Content words carry the meaning of a sentence. They include nouns, so dog, garden, report, main verbs, run, eat, understand, adjectives, beautiful, old, interesting, and adverbs, quickly, quietly, very. Now, what are function words? Function words are the glue of the sentence. So we have articles, a, the, prepositions, in, on, at, auxiliary verbs, is, have, do, conjunctions, and, but, or, and pronouns, he, she, they. These words are usually unstressed in RP English. Let's do a quick example sentence to hear. The dog ran quickly to the garden. The dog ran quickly to the garden. So did you hear the content words were stressed? The dog, quickly, garden, whereas the function words, the, to, the, were unstressed. So say it out loud and put some real stress on those content words. The dog ran quickly to the garden. Notice how those function words almost disappear in connected speech. So why are content words stressed? Firstly, to give meaning. The listener hears the important words first. Secondly, to sound natural. English rhythm depends on alternating stressed and unstressed syllables. And 3, to clarify intention. Stress can even change the meaning of a sentence. Let's do an example. I did finish the report. Here we emphasise the verb. I did finish the report. And here we emphasised what was finished, the report. So I'd like you to say these 3 sentences out loud, stressing the content words as you do so. OK? Firstly, she bought a beautiful vase for her mother. Your turn. They're walking quietly through the garden. Your turn. I can't believe he finished the project so quickly. So raise your pitch slightly on the content words and make sure to weaken the function words, the a, the, in, to, and. In connected RP speech, unstressed words often link to nearby stressed words. So to the garden, and ran quickly, ran quickly. This gives English its natural flowing rhythm. OK, let's do one more sentence, saying it smoothly in RP style, stressing the content words and letting those function words slightly disappear. The teacher explained the interesting experiment very carefully. So what were the content words? The teacher explained the interesting experiment very carefully. So we have lots in this sentence. Teacher, explained, interesting, experiment, carefully. So we're putting slight more emphasis on those words, but the, and the very disappear. Notice how your voice naturally rises and falls on the important words. That's RP rhythm in action. Get more pronunciation tips inside my British Accent Bundle, everything you need to sound fluent and natural in RP British English. Go to learningbritishaccent.com/bundle for info. Section 2. 10 polite ways to ask for clarification in English. Ever been in a conversation and thought, wait, what did they just say? In English, especially in British English, there are lots of polite ways to ask for clarification. Some short, some slightly formal, but they'll all help you sound natural and confident. Here's a full list you can start using today. Let's start with pardon, pardon. Classic and polite, used when you didn't hear something. For example, pardon, could you repeat that please? Pardon. It's a soft second syllable. Pardon. Number 2 is sorry. Sorry? Very common in everyday British speech. Can signal surprise, doubt, or a request to repeat. For example, sorry, I didn't catch that last part. So, sorry. Very soft R in there. Thirdly, do you mean? Do you mean? So this is a friendly way to check if you understood it correctly. For example, do you mean we need to submit the report by Friday? Do you mean? Do you mean? We run those words into each other. Do you mean? Next is, could you say that again, please? Could you say that again, please? This is polite and direct, used in both formal and informal situations. For example, I'm afraid I didn't catch that. Could you say that again, please? So, could you say that again? In connected speech, could you say that again? Could you is linked. Could you say that again? Again. That's schwa, again. Then we have, would you elaborate on that, please? Would you elaborate on that, please? This is a slightly more formal option, asking for a bit more detail or explanation. For example, would you elaborate on that point about the budget? Next, you could say, could you be more explicit? So this is very direct, but it's still polite and it's asking for clarity. For example, could you be more explicit about what you want me to do? Or you could say, could you explain what you mean by... And this is very common in professional or academic contexts. For example, could you explain what you mean by upward trend? Alternatively, you could say, could you give us an example? Could you give us an example? This asks for a concrete illustration to help understanding. So, for example, could you give us an example of a successful marketing campaign? Or say, I wonder if you could say that in a different way. So this is polite and slightly formal. It might be good for meetings or presentations. For example, I wonder if you could say that in a different way. I'm not quite following. And finally, what about, could you put it differently, please? Or could you be more specific, please? These are useful alternatives when you need a clearer explanation without sounding abrupt. So, for example, could you put it differently, please? Could you be more specific, please? OK, let's do an imaginary short dialogue. You're planning a weekend outing. So, we'll meet at the cafe at 10 a.m. and then head to the park. Sorry, did you say 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.? 10 a.m. I meant 10 in the morning. Oh, I see. Do you mean the main cafe on the high street? Yes, that one exactly. I wonder if you could say that in a different way. Are we walking there first or taking the bus? We'll walk. It's only about 10 minutes. Got it. Could you give us an example of where we might sit, indoors or outside? Outside, near the benches by the window. Perfect. And could you be more specific about the park? Which entrance should we use? use the north gate right by the playground. Great, thanks. That really helps. Now, many of these phrases use weak forms and linking in natural speech. So we've got could you, could you? I wonder if you could. I wonder if you could. Wonder if you could. And do you mean? Do you mean? Do you mean? Focus on linking those words together smoothly and stressing the important content words. Okay, I've got 3 sentences I'd like you to say out loud naturally in your own RP style. Okay, firstly, do you mean we need to submit the report by Friday? Your turn. I wonder if you could say that in a different way. Could you give us an example? So notice the rhythm, the weak forms and the polite intonation. It will make you sound like a confident British speaker. And inside my British accent bundle, I go step by step through pronunciation. So everything you need to sound natural and confident in British English. Explore it at learningbritishaccent.com/bundle. Section 3. Some everyday collocations with the word life. One of the easiest ways to sound natural in English is to use common collocations, words that naturally go together. Now in this section, we'll explore collocations with the word life that pop up in everyday conversation and British media. So let's start with lead a life, meaning the way you live. For example, she leads a very busy life. Or he wants to lead a quieter life in the countryside. So lead a, that A is a, life. Stress the content words again. Lead, busy, life. Number 2 is social life. Social life. This refers to the way you interact with friends, family and society. For example, since starting her new job, she's had very little social life. It's important to balance work and social life. So social life, social life. And then we've got make a life or lead a life, way of life. So he moved to London to make a life for himself. And family meals are an important part of the British way of life. And then we've got take somebody's life. Take somebody's life. A serious dramatic collocation, often used in news or storytelling. For example, the criminal took someone's life during the robbery. War can take many innocent lives. And then we've got risk your life. Risk your life, used when someone does something dangerous. For example, firefighters risk their lives to save others. He risked his life climbing the cliff. Risk your life. Risk your life. And then we've got fighting for your life. Fighting for your life. This describes a situation where someone is struggling to survive. For example, the patient was fighting for her life in the ICU. The sailors were fighting for their lives during the storm. Fighting for your life. For and your is weak. Fighting for your life. Then we've got in real life. In real life. Used when contrasting reality with fiction, theory or imagination. For example, he looks confident on TV, but in real life he's quite shy. And then we've got quality of life. Quality of life. This refers to how good life is, often used in discussions about health, work or living conditions. For example, the new park has really improved the quality of life for local residents. Quality of life. Another one is life sentence, which refers to a prison sentence for life. For example, he got a life sentence for murder. And then you might hear life experience. Life experience refers to what you learn from living. For example, travelling gives you valuable life experience. Life savings refers to the money someone has saved over their life. For example, she spent her life savings on a small business. Or, he lost all his life savings in the stock market crash. Life savings. And finally, you'll hear private life, which refers to someone's personal life away from work or public attention. For example, politicians should be allowed to have a private life. She keeps her private life completely separate from her career. Okay, so I'm going to put these in some sentences and I'll leave you space after each so you can copy and repeat. She's been working so hard that she has very little social life. Firefighters risk their lives to save others. He moved to London to make a life for himself. The patient was fighting for her life. In real life, she's much more approachable. The new park has improved the quality of life for local residents. He got a life sentence for theft. Travelling gives you valuable life experience. She spent her life savings on a small business. Politicians should be allowed to have a private life. Notice the rhythm, stress the content words, reduce the small words, and link the weak forms. That's RP British English in action. Section 4. Who do you call? Fun ways to address people in British English. In RP British English, the way you address someone can change depending on the situation, your relationship with them, and how polite you want to be. Let's explore some classic forms of address with a sprinkle of RP pronunciation tips to keep you sounding natural. Okay, so we start with Mr., Mrs., Miss or Ms. These are used with last names in formal situations. For example, good morning, Mr. Smith. Excuse me, Mrs. Patel, could you help me? Miss Johnson will see you now. Then we have sir and ma'am. Very polite, often used in customer service or very formal interactions. Ma'am is commonly heard in police shows. Madam is an alternative, though I don't like it. So you might hear, can I help you, sir? Or, would you like a cup of tea, ma'am? So, sir, and ma'am, it's soft, clipped, ma'am. Thirdly, we've got first names, so these are used in informal situations or if someone invites you to use it. For example, hello Emma, lovely to see you. Hi James, how was your weekend? Keep a friendly, smooth tone. Fourthly, we've got nicknames or pet names. These are often playful, used among friends or family. So you might have, fancy seeing you, Lizzie. All right, Tomo? So Tom is changed to Tomo as an affectionate nickname or pet name. These are quite casual. At number 5, we've got titles and role. So this is used for respectful but professional address. So things like doctor, professor, captain, etc. Examples: Professor Clark will lead today's seminar. Dr. Evans is in her office. Captain Smith, we're ready for inspection. And at number 6, we've got collective or humorous forms. So British English loves a touch of humour in informal address. So you might hear things like, "Oi, you lot," which is used for a group of friends. "Ladies and gentlemen," formal but fun when used theatrically. Or "old chap" or "old sport," very RP, slightly playful. I'll say 5 sentences, leaving a space in between each for you to repeat. Good morning, Mr. Smith. Can I help you, sir? Hello, Emma. Lovely to see you. Professor Clark will lead today's seminar. Oi, you lot. Time for tea. So focus on stressing the surnames and the titles in formal speech. Make sure you're using some smooth linking in informal greetings. And it's light, polite intonation for sir, ma'am. And if you want some more help with your British accent pronunciation, do head over to learningbritishaccent.com/bundle for the training. OK, so you've made it through to the end of yet another episode. Did you learn anything useful? I post clips from my podcast episodes on my social media for you to shadow along with me. So listen, repeat and shadow my British accent so you can improve yours. You'll find me on all the main channels. Links are in the show notes. But for now, see you next time. Bye for now.